Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Nigh Midnight. My name's Elgin. This is my buddy.
Jason. Salutations means hello and goodbye. I learned that from Spider when
That old jam.
mm-hmm.
Awesome. Awesome.
Pig.
Some pig. You did learn a lot of big words from Charlotte's Web, huh? Well, a whole life and death movie when you think about it.
We learned the circle of life before
Yeah.
Simba and Mufasa.
Oh, of course,
But
before they made it soft. It was the hard days
there
when
was
we ate what we killed.
what is it? If you kill your father, it's patricide. If you kill a child, infanticide. But if you kill a brother to take over the pack, what did he do? He did hermanocide.
I have no idea.
Siblicide.
Civil side, yeah.
I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was not sure.
It's all Cain and Abel situation.
Basically, yeah. But
You know what I mean?
I mean, when there's four people in the entirety of the world, and all of
Kind
a
of narrows
sudden
down.
the only person who's like big and with the biggest person in the world basically says you're not my favorite. Man, can you imagine the shit
It's
that
got
does to you before therapists?
it's got to be an emotional damage moment, you know.
I
a
mean,
true
I'm
a
not
true
saying he
scar
didn't
formed.
go too far,
I
absolutely,
mean,
without question.
if
But
you
at the
think
same
about it, the guy
time,
he was also a mass murderer. I mean, 25% of the population he wiped off the earth.
uh,
Killer.
if you're looking at percentages, all right. If you were looking at percentages, I'm not going to be able to argue with you. But I think that if we're just going to talk about a crime of passion, I think the modern courts
Still,
require
I
it to be
mean,
a manslaughter, right? I mean, think about Thanksgiving. You know what I mean? Think about a normal Thanksgiving that at least the way
it got out of hand.
'90s TV show, the way the '90s taught me most people's families work. Um, Thanksgiving is when you don't want electric knives around, but that's where they are. You know what I mean? The
Right. The
carving
worst time
knives.
to have to be arguing with each other
It,
is
it,
when you have
it
sharp
doesn't seem like the
implements.
time. Doesn't seem like the time. But so yeah, tonight, as the name is, episode 7, called Beasts of Legend.
Beasts of Legends. I love it.
I like to sometimes surprise E with the name of it because sometimes
It's
it's funny for
inspiring.
surprises.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
inspiring. I love it, man. I love that. That's a good name.
in the moment,
Get that visceral
yeah.
reaction.
And nothing is better than Candid Camera. And I don't remember much about Candid Camera. Not a funny joke anymore. So Beasts of Legend. Candid Camera is definitely a beast of legend, always
Yeah,
lurking
gosh,
behind the
talk about
bushes.
never know what's gonna come up. They were always nice though. So
Couldn't know, couldn't possibly know. So yeah. Um. Hmm. Hmm. What was your favorite one? Which one did you start with?
the first one I started with was the Manticore. That was
The
my absolute.
Manticore. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. If anyone's listening, by the way, go ahead and use those links that we posted on all the socials. Chime in if you're on the conversation. You can also chat or call in and become part of the conversation. But yeah, the Manticore. It's something that I've always thought was a ridiculous monster that someone created out of nowhere because they wanted to strike as much fear as they could in their children.
Mm-hmm.
You
That
look this
is a
thing up.
very
It's
funny thing.
face of a man, an old man, beard of an old man, blue or light gray eyes, body of a lion. It doesn't end there. Tail of a scorpion with spikes that can shoot off of the tail. Also covered in exoskeleton on the rear of the lion's body, sometimes depicted with dragon wings or large leathery wings like a bat, and has the voice that of a pan flute and trumpet mixed together.
This
Spelled
does not stop.
Fear.
It just
Fear,
doesn't. It just
fear.
fear. Yeah, it
The,
just
when
doesn't
you
stop.
when you look it up, when you look up the history of it, it's Persian and Egyptian primarily, but it does have some Greek background as well. Believe, where they say that they captured one for one of the emperors and studied it for a little bit, but it got away. And the legend is that these things are man eaters. That's
License.
what the word means in Persian. Yeah, it's pretty cool. They're man eaters, but
Manticore.
not only just manahu and some other word I can't remember. Where it was two words, which basically comes down to man eater, and they devour men, but not just one. They like to eat them in big packs, and they eat
They like to eat
human
packs of men.
packs of men, and they also have to eat metal. So they don't like to eat just like a weak man. They like to eat men who are warriors because obviously they're dressed in, back in that time, scale metal, chain mesh, armor plating, stuff like that. So they have to have both of these two things to survive. And they live out in like cave areas, and they live near humans. They have to, obviously, because they eat humans. So pretty scary. There's a lot of lore about it in Persian time and in India about it recently, not recently, but in the 30s. They talk about people going into the forest and then getting lost out there, and they say that they heard trumpets or pan flute mix with a trumpet sound, and that's like the impending attacking sound of the manticore. And then those people are lost, always lost forever. And the cool thing too is they never leave anything behind. So they eat clothes, bones, everything, including all the weaponry that you came out there with. So there's zero trace of you.
So it's it's one of those easy stories to blame, people who fall down a cave or get sucked down, never to be seen. Watch out for what is it? Watch out for quicksand, but you can't ever find a body. So it's just as easy to blame it on a manticore, right?
Exactly. To me, at first, it seemed like,
They
hey,
eat
man,
bone
this
and
is one of
all.
those stories like, yeah, the reason why they say that is like, don't go into the forest after a battle by yourself, or don't let your children carry buckets into the forest. It's in India, for God's sake. There's tigers and lions, two kinds of tigers I forgot to mention, and lions in that region of India. So it's like, yeah, I could understand why people would see a lion and be like, man, this thing, oh, I forgot to mention it's got 3 rows of teeth. Why this thing was gobbling up kids and warriors and anybody carrying metal, or if you had any kind of metal in your pocket and would get lost if they didn't hear you. And then they would hear this trumpeting sound. There's always wind sounds blowing through there. You know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
sounds very much like an easy cop out of, hey, don't go into the forest because Joe Smo got eaten by a tiger / manticore the other day. We heard some horns and now he's gone.
That is very, yeah. Let me see.
There's also some other information on it too that I was looking up. There's iterations from the Greek times that they say after they grow past 4 years of age, they become adults, and once they become adults, they can breathe fire. I mean, this is like this creature is like the most powerful mythical creature there ever is. When you look it up, that's what everything says. The only animal that this thing doesn't eat is an elephant. They have no reason for it. It's the weirdest thing. There's no history you can look up and see why they won't eat an elephant. And they say that
They
they're as
won't eat
big
an
as like
elephant at all.
rhinos and hippos, but will not eat an elephant. It's the weirdest thing. They all say that the only thing that they won't eat is elephant. That's just like the I guess you would call the history of it, or like the background of it. It loves elephants, I guess.
Yeah, it's a really weird thing. Elephants of all things, they don't blame the toughness of the hide or anything.
3 rows of teeth.
Well, you'd think that's getting through.
And it eats metal. So I mean, your skin's not as strong as metal, or elephant skin's not as strong as chain mail or plate steel.
Yeah, I looked into. What's funny is there is. I thought there was I thought the tail of the manticore was not a scorpion. I forgot about that. I thought it was
What's some iterations
a
it just has
viper.
spike. Some iterations just have a spike tail, and the tail, the spikes, excuse me, can shoot off of the tail up to 100 to 200 feet, and then they regrow themselves rapidly. So basically, he can shoot spikes like an arrow off of his tail to poison and what do you call them? Not decapitate, like debilitate his prey or however many prey he's going after. Again, they like to mostly hunt pack humans, not singles.
That
Which
that sounds so bold. You know what creature always goes after the harder cell even.
that's why I liked it. Actually, I
Um,
looked it up more because I was like, man, you always read that it pulls like unsuspecting little kids or like
yeah,
one person that was hiding out in the shadows. It's like, no, this thing is bold. It doesn't give a crap. It wants to eat everything that you have on you. It wants to eat you, your friends, and part of the squadron you're with. You know what I mean? Like it's just like a big fu animal. Like it can't be killed. It's got an exoskeleton. Like nothing can penetrate its flesh. It's as fast as a lion, but as smart as a human. Oh, I forgot to mention also, it can sing when it's in tall grass. It can sing to you to bring
and
you in.
it sings, and it
Yeah, I'm
sings.
like, this thing is just insane that what they've created or what could have been out there. I don't know. I never put it past, but it's like, man, the more that the legend goes on, the more that you read, it's like this thing is frightening as all get out. It only has those two color eyes because those are the eyes that are most pleasant to humans. It says so that way it can
Hmm.
stand in or crouch down in tall grass and look like an old man and sing to you. So you come over to help the old man, and then three rows of lion teeth and wings and fire and scorpion tail with spikes. You're getting shredded, you and your friends. Like, oh my gosh.
I think if I remember correctly, my wife, I brought this up before. She has the story where she's from about the Rong Shong, who basically is like a goblin man of sorts. And so what he does is, I guess, yes, I believe he whistles. I don't want to scream to her from the other room, but I believe he whistles. And so that's one way you might bump into him, but um, that is very interesting. As far as a cryptid or like a legendary beast that does not sing, or that actually sings, most don't, especially unless they're some anthropomorphic. Usually there's some kind of a human-ish, not just a human voice to lull you in. That's really interesting. I don't know. That was my little
Yeah, they
rant.
have.
Sorry.
No, you're right. Actually, it's always something like that with some of the creatures that are like human eaters. I guess, or man eaters. I would call them, like
Man
even
eaters.
like sirens. I was looking up sirens because my girlfriend was watching that show that was on Netflix a while back. Like the mermaid one, and they
Mhm.
sing, and that's how they would draw you to the water and then pull you in and drown you and eat you. That one was a pretty good show just because it made mermaids not so like, oh, these beautiful creatures that want to help sailors. It's like, no, those things were like eating sailors. That was their like diet when they were bored. They would just pull sailors off boats and treat them like dolphins treat stingrays and stuff like that. Well, orcas, I mean, treat stingrays and stuff like that.
That what a time. What a time to see something and immediately kill it. Amazing. You know,
I mean,
what
that's
an
always been our
interesting
way.
time.
It's something weird you see out and you're like, I wonder what it tastes like.
Yeah,
That's always been our
I
way. You know
understand
what I
that.
mean? Like, wow, what a
I
beautiful
definitely
creature.
understand that.
Let's pull it out of the water and barbecue that bad boy.
When I lived in Hawaii, they were talking about how illegal it is to eat any of the sea turtles. I remember even in Looney Tunes, Merry Melodies, they were making jokes about turtle soup. So, uh, very interesting that in such a short amount of time that it was part of kids media, you know, ha ha ha, turtle soup.
Right.
And
Turtle
that
soup. Yeah.
now no way at all.
Well, not ocean
But
turtles, but you can eat other kind of turtles now.
yeah,
I mean, they do still in New
yeah,
Orleans. Like that's where I've had it. It was good. It's pretty good actually. A little oily,
I
but
bet.
it's pretty good.
I mean, uh,
You
I
know my
I
motto: if
always
it
think
walks,
of,
swims, or crawls with its back to the sun, put barbecue sauce on it. I can eat it.
as long as there's bone to rip meat off of, I'm usually good about it. There are a couple invertebrates. I'm
Sharks,
invertebrate. I'm not. I actually.
sharks? Question mark. No bones.
I love fit. I love fish. I hate the taste of shark. They don't. They piss inside their own body. They don't have like a piss system. They piss like into
Yeah,
their body. Their whole life is basically marinating in their own piss. And I don't know if I heard this before I tried shark, or if I just didn't like shark and went looking for a reason. I said that one's good enough. But they piss
yeah,
into their
right.
own bodies, and they don't filter it out. I guess they're so gross they don't need to. It's just like more disgustrients instead of
Well, it's also like
nutrients.
who's eating sharks? You know what I mean? Like what in nature is just going around preying on sharks? Like you know what I mean? It's bad meat.
Honestly, yeah,
It's just that simple.
it
That's why
really is. I don't
even
like it.
humans, we don't eat their
I
meat.
do not like it.
We eat their
We don't eat
fins
human
and
meat, you
their
mean, or
no, we don't eat
yeah, the
shark
fins,
meat. You eat their
sharks.
fins, shark fin
Yeah,
soup. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. But they don't eat their
people's
meat because
bad
it's
meat too.
disgusting. Yeah, people's
Yeah,
bad meat. It's for other reasons.
people's is bad meat, but for whole other reasons. I'm not going to get into that here. But on a
Right?
later
But
episode, I'm sure we're going to dive
oh, we're
deep
getting in
into it.
zombies. Come on,
Recipes,
come on.
yes.
The other thing I was going to bring up about sharks, that's why I kind of brought it up. Rows of teeth. There's sharks in India, so it's like I was reading up on this
Rows
other
of teeth.
website. Yeah, so the manticore, it's got three
Yeah.
rows of teeth, right? There's sharks in India.
Hmm.
It's like this story. The more I read up on it, it feels like they took the scariest parts of every animal that's in their region and just made this thing. They have bats over there, flying foxes that are as big as 5 feet across. They can pick up dogs and little kids. It's like
Yeah.
that's a place to me is
Actually,
like, okay, that's you shouldn't have humans there. If humans are prey and
if
humans
it's
are
that
not on
bad,
the yeah, if they're not on that high of a pedestal on the food chain, you shouldn't be there. Leave that place alone. That jungle is theirs.
yeah.
I'm like, you guys
Yeah,
own that. You have
I
your security system put up. I clearly can see this. Okay, I'm sorry. We're leaving. I mean, my bad.
because of what you said, the way they amalgamate as many of the scary things in their area as possible to create this manticore that possibly they fully believe in. The other thing interesting is the first time I remember seeing a manticore is much earlier or so much further away than where were we talking about in India as well? Like, I thought the first
Yeah,
time it was
Persia and
Mesopotamian.
India. It's Persian,
I thought it
Indian,
was
Egyptian,
okay.
and Greek.
Okay.
So I
I
mean,
guess lots of wars between those two
yeah, I was gonna say
areas.
it could have spread through that
Those
area.
were
So yeah, I mean,
those
if
were
you
the
look
two
at
sides back then.
right, if you look at like the Persian, uh, not Persian Sphinx, but that's what they look like. They're all these creatures of like half lion, half man face creatures. Like the Sphinx are like that too, and they're from the same family as Manticore. That's what they're
Yeah,
saying. So they're like the docile version of a manticore or a dumbed down version of a manticore is what the Sphinx are supposed to be because the Persians, the Macedonians, even like you're saying, the Mesopotamians, they all have these creatures of half man, half lion, half, flying something kind of creature, eagle or dragon or whatever you want to call it, leather winged. They're
yeah.
called.
The dragon specifically. That's what I was reminded of earlier. Sorry, I got a brain skip. I remember it may have been a TED talk, but there was, I believe he was a geneticist. I believe he was maybe not. He might have had a fringe theory, but I believe that he was talking about genetic memory, and where in the lightest way, it basically comes down to instinct. It's not like I have full cognitive memory of everything my father lived up until that night, but it's like, you know, there are images that are in the psyche of us. So he's basically saying that from when we evolved from small little mole rat type things, the the creatures that we had to be programmed to avoid, they had the big fangs, they had the big, like, fangs like a cat. They had scales like lizards that were bigger than us, they said, you know. And again, I think we were bigger and we've got smaller. We're getting into that another time. It has nothing to do
Right.
with evolution.
Keeps coming
I
back
just
up.
think that we were keeps coming back up. But then yeah, and then
Deep
talons.
seated.
And so dragons are always depicted with talons like a bird, and whether or not they have wings, the European dragons do. Many other dragons are just serpentine and do inherently have the ability to fly, though, and that's something that goes. And that's what this person, I wish I could remember his name. He was saying that it's genetic memory for us to fear snakes, cats, big cats, and big, and birds of prey. If you mix those three creatures up in your head, what do you get every time? It's a dragon of a sort, or a manticore, even,
Right,
honestly. I
of
mean,
type. Yeah, exactly. There was
these
I think there was even a
chimeras.
Disney movie that had that same like character description where they talk about that, like that's why we fear them, is because, well, if you notice too, like you were saying, Chinese dragons and all that, they never have wings. It's always just serpents. You know what I mean? That can
Yeah,
fly. Um,
they can
but
fly,
that's
but yeah.
yeah, they can just fly just because that's what they do. It's not even an explained thing, which I love whenever they have stuff like that. Like, yeah, we're not explaining it. That's how it happens. So
the
there
the
you go.
talons the talons are always bird of prey, like a viper, not viper, I'm sorry, like an eagle or a falcon,
Falcon,
so
yeah,
there's
exactly.
that. So no matter what, they always have those kind of talon like claws. So that there's some bird attribute beside even flying. It's really interesting, these amalgamated animals that they come up with, that have been come up with, and that people claim to see or run from. You know,
Well, it's funny too.
I would
Like these
love to
stories,
find one, honestly.
yeah. I was just about to say, like these stories about the, well, Manticore in particular, I'll talk about, um, because they never found one, because they never had remains or anything that even looks remotely like it. It always comes off to me like that's a story to save people from some other reasoning. You know what I mean? Whereas like they think they have found, dragons and stuff like that, and they've found creatures that they can't explain why they look like that in the bones form, and equate them to other, mythical creatures. Like these are ones that are like super, super feared. You know what I mean? Well, Manticore in particular, again, is like ones that are super feared. Like even nowadays, they talk about it in India, like, oh yeah, you can't go out in this area because the Manticore lives there. It's like you're fearing something that you is just legend. You know what I mean? And no one's seen one since whatever, but they just fear it because it's such a fearful thing and it's such a scary thing that they're like, oh man, you hear that horn, like everybody runs out of the forest. You know what I mean? And everybody spreads out
And,
because it's like, well, if you're too close to each other, you're just attracting him even more. You know what I mean? That's just it's a crazy notion to have such an old creature that strikes so much fear for so long. You know what I mean? Because we
yeah,
have them here, in America too. We have creatures that, people are afraid of. You know what I mean? But it's like it's not as a story to keep you from doing something. It's actual, like, oh man, we think we've seen these. We're trying to catch them, kind of a thing. Whereas over there, they're like, we don't want to catch it. We don't want to be seen by it. We don't want to. You know what I mean? It's such an
I
interesting dichotomy of cultures where it's like, man, over here we're like, we got to catch it and put it in a cage and study it and learn everything about it. Over there, they're like, dude, don't go in there. There's a manticore. I've heard, my cousin was in there once. He got gobbled up. You know.
and at the same time, the animal that of the past that is, we're not just looking at cryptid particularly this week. It was really legendary animals, that throughout history, And this is really a series. Some cryptids are a little bit newer, but the ones we're talking about are more like ancient mythological. Did they see them? Some people want to say yes, kind of type creature. You know, the beasts of legend. I looked into the living dinosaur, the brontosaur or whatever in the Congo. Honestly, every time I looked into something else, it kind of there's not a lot. Mokele Mbembe is basically a giant. You know, sometimes it looks like a long neck. Sometimes it seems to have spines on its back. A National Geographic researcher apparently found it in the early 1900s or said he saw one. But the only thing going for it is the Congo is relatively unchanged. It's one of those places that, you know, the ice age came and went, and that place stayed kind of warm. You know,
Isn't it a national forest too, right? Like nobody can go in there and like mess it up pretty much. Not supposed to anyway.
I believe it is protected by coalitions of multiple different places, but you know, there are people who natively live there. And so I watched
Yeah.
the Vice with David Cho, and looks like, from what I understand, it wasn't the first time he was there. Yeah, and he was there with the Congolese. It looked like what it looked like to me, and I think I was telling you before we started recording. It reminds me of something that would happen in almost any part of the world, and it's got nothing to do with, you know, some people might say, oh, they're in a part of the world so they believe that it's that. Vibe I got was these guys walk through the jungle and they show up in the village, and everyone is like, hey, good job making it through that jungle. You know what I mean?
Wow, you survived, first of all.
We're impressed.
Where are you from?
And yeah, and you know, so what was so important that you're here? What's up? You know, friendly people.
What can I do for you?
They say, we're looking for that legendary dinosaur. And everyone starts going, dinosaur? You want to see a dinosaur? This guy wants to see a dinosaur. Did he say dinosaur? Dinosaur, 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 dinosaur. All of a sudden, everyone's hanging out. Everyone in town. And it's, you know, and they're like, all right, well, have a seat. And they gave him a drink. And they got him drunk on something that he said was more than just alcohol, you know?
Always.
I don't know what it is that they're fermenting. You can make alcohol out of anything. Yeah, you can absolutely ferment something that's already psychotropic, so it can happen. Whatever it was that he was drinking, he says that when the person came out kind of dressed in he wasn't sure if it was supposed to be some sort of depiction of the dinosaur or maybe some other sort of something.
Sleestack.
He was kind of drunk enough to Sleestack. Honestly, I had. That's the other thing. This topic with the Congo dinosaur, it is so shallow. I ended up it's like I had to go through every kind of reptilian stuff. And yes, Sleestacks are absolutely real, and I'll prove it tonight. No.
Oh man, convince me.
If only. Based on this 5-point analysis, we should see Sleestacks in in by the end of. So.
Oh, transmission.
But anyway, transmission ended. Like I was saying, it looks like they got a couple drinks in them. You know, this poor fucking guy came all the way to the middle of the jungle to look for a fucking dinosaur. Give this man a drink and let's put on a show. You know what I mean? Is what it seems
right?
like. Can you believe this guy came down here to look for a dinosaur?
We might as well give him a good time, right?
You know, the other thing too that probably passes through their mind might be, you know, we like live here all day. my mom lived here, and my family's
Right? How many
generations living in this
generations? Yeah,
jungle. You know,
exactly.
like if there's a dinosaur, I just feel like if anything would get people to leave the land, it's the thing that just
No,
accidentally
no, no,
crushes half
no,
the village
no.
while it's looking for food.
I believe that you would learn to live in harmony with it, like Skull Island. You know what I mean? You
Like
just stay out of it.
Skull Island.
You stay off of his out of his path and hope he doesn't come through and want to,
I thought you didn't
pick his
like
teeth
what
with you.
Paramount was doing with their Kaiju verse. I thought you weren't a fan of the
I do
Kaiju verse attempt,
not. I do not. But Skull Island was
but you
the best
know
out of all of
about it.
them, and you know why I
But
like
you have
that
heard
one
of
too.
it
You should know why I like that one. One actor in
with
it
Skull
that
Island.
one actor in it that makes me smile in every movie he's in.
I mean, if we're talking about
His
the
line in the movie
Saint,
was, "You guys are all good boys. You shouldn't have come here. We're all gonna die."
is that John Goodman or no? Not John
No,
Goodman. Who?
Philip Hoffman.
Philip Philip Seymour Hoffman?
Yes, yeah, he's in it. He's the pilot from World War II in it. They got lost there.
Oh no. No, it's John
Yeah.
C.
Or John C.
Riley.
Riley, sorry. I always confuse their two names. Yeah. Riley, excuse me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Philip
from
Seymour Hoffman was a phenomenal actor. I've always
John
enjoyed
C.
him.
Riley, though, my guy,
Rest in
man.
peace,
Love that dude.
John C.
Horrible with
Riley.
names.
Yeah, John C. Riley is maybe
Loved
one
him in
of the
Chicago too.
greatest, one of the all-time greatest actors. Just
That guy can play anything, like a sad role,
anything.
a comedy role, anything. He is on it. I love all of his work.
He's got probably my favorite career, like of watching it. Like back in the '90s and early 2000s, he did all the drama. He got all his golden men, and like, and then he started hanging out.
I feel like he
having
just
fun
tried
with Will
everything. Yeah,
Ferrell and
like
Tim and Eric.
he was like,
And
"What
it's
can
like
we
he
do?
already got
Let's
his
take the next
awards.
role."
He won Best Actor in a drama, and what do you do now? Now I can have fun. He is the most fun. Steve Brule sounds expensive. I love it.
That was expensive. Between him and Christopher Walken, I'm like, who is picking your movie roles? They just pick roles that I think is awesome. You know what I mean? They even have monster. Well, speaking of monsters, like the monster in that was cool. You know what I mean? In Skull Island, that was interesting too. But it's like it's just such a weird thing to me to have an actor like that can play so many different levels.
Interesting to me that you bring up Christopher Walken and the way people are cast. Now, apparently Villanueva has got the green light to be making the second part of Dune. I'm glad that you're smiling like that.
Yes.
I very much enjoyed part one.
Go on.
And guess who was cast as the Emperor?
I'm shutting off now. I love it.
Telling you, Christopher Walken.
It's Christopher
the worst
Walken.
Walken ever. It's Christopher Walken. Do it again.
I love it.
Face the soldering iron.
That is awesome.
It's so good. I mean, he has another one of those fun careers where he was in Deer Hunter. He was in and so why does
he's got a really long career actually too? He's been doing movies for a long time, man.
Yeah. Pretty sure. No, wait, yeah. He was also on the boat that night when what's her name disappeared in the water. Robert Wagner and what was his that controversy? Anyway, that was a whole other thing. We're talking about Beasts of Legend. We're not talking about Natalie Wood.
I'm like,
we're not talking. We're not talking about Natalie Wood. Yes, Natalie Wood. And I was almost getting everything confused. I was like, he was in the other room when Roman Polanski was. No, he wasn't. No,
right, you're getting spun off now.
I know. Insane IT.
You're talking about the Congolese people?
Yes. They just seemed like they were giving him a fun night for making it through the jungle. And it reminded me of when I watched Hellier. First, these people showed up in the middle of, this is the, I don't know if it's Appalachian or Appalachian, whichever the proper, pronunciation is. They show up in the middle of the forest in this small town. And at first, they're at the gas station. And by the way, I actually very much like Hellier. I liked it a lot. But it made me laugh that at first, people were like, "You're looking for what? Goblins."
Right.
And a guy who says he lived here but no proof. Cool. Hey, have a day, a whole day. Bye. And then as the day goes on, people start to call and show, "Hey, I heard that you're down there. I'll meet you down there. I got some stories for you." It reminded me of like me showing up and then calling you, "Bro, I'm just trying to get gas and these people asked me if Bigfoot was in town. Are you serious?" And you're bored, you got nothing to do because it's a small day. And
Right.
You're like, "Wait,
Go grab me a
they're
Bigfoot
at the
suit.
gas station, aka Town Square, aka the hangout, the place to be in town. You're saying they're at the gas station right now?" I got a Bigfoot story for him.
On my way.
Not a lot happens in small towns or villages or anything. And if somebody makes it all the way out here looking for fucking Bigfoot, sure, you know what? Let's have some fun. Let's get these out of towners a drink and until they see it. That's kind of the same vibe. It has nothing to do with being out of the culture or out of, whether or not you have exposure to the internet or TV or any of that. Like, if something's wild, if somebody comes in asking wild questions in your town, you might take pity on them and try to give them as best a night as you can.
I think it's like you're saying, these people are remote. It's not like a city center. You know what I mean? Like, they live in villages and huts in the middle of jungle where it's like they've probably never seen that type of person. So they're like, wow, this is a special event. Let's show him a good time, and whatever will make his dinosaur real. Who cares? He'll be tripping balls like he does, like everyone else does when you're drinking this stuff. So it's fine.
Exactly. That's what I think. I think that, there probably are places that have a knowledge of a creature that they might even just assume is all over, but I think something like a dinosaur would have been tracked or seen. Hell, Google Earth at this point would have accidentally walked over one. You know what I mean? We can see footprints at this point. We could see a dinosaur footprint with Google Earth. There's people looking.
Even with like not echolocation, sonar. That's the word I'm looking for. With sonar, we can do that, from space and see imprints on Earth, and it's pretty technically advanced now. I was thinking about, like you were talking about them giving them a drink. Like, I was like, man, there's some drink that I couldn't remember. It was in Inca or Peru. I looked it up. It's Peruvian. It's called chicha, and it's this stuff
where they chew it.
Yeah, they chew it up and you spit it in, and then you let it ferment, and then it gets you high.
Wow. Yeah, there's a lot of, I want my feet to tread everywhere that this great pebble in the stars, has
blue marble.
But honestly, blue marble, whatever. I like to see everything, but there are some places where my stomach is already turning at the thing I'm going to have to do to be polite, which is take a sip of that drink, which I'm down for so many.
I'm going to be dishonorable.
Things.
I can't do it.
I would absolutely be happy to take that and teach them how to distill. Oh, you see, and it doesn't even matter. It's almost like we're boiling all the spit away, condensing the gases. There you go.
It's the bacteria they're saying that makes it ferment properly into this super high alcoholic drink.
Absolutely, and I can still still distill the alcohol away from the spit particulate.
And it's funny because they have stories of mythological creatures in Peru, of people that wear
Hmm.
skin and faces and run around and grab you up and pull you out into the river. And you know what I mean? Like, well, I wonder
I love
why
it.
when you're drinking chicha all day long and you know
Hmm.
when you and your boys are making spit moonshine.
I,
It's
I
like,
I
yeah, I'd be a little
really
afraid of the jungle too when I'm
wait.
hallucinating on, moonshine.
It's got to be wild. Got to be wild to have that kind of a liquor in you. You know, I purchased a kind of absinthe that might not have been legal in the country I was consuming it in, but it sure did get shipped through customs to me. So, you know, there you go. But it was like the highest thujone content, which is the thing in wormwood that is supposedly the
Wormwood,
green
yeah.
fairy. And I'll tell you what, it's a slightly different, it's a gigglier, like, drunk, but it's not a hallucinogen. You know what I mean? It's there's
Well,
no
it
green
depends on how
fairy.
much you're drinking,
That's quite the tale. I guess
It's the whole
so.
Vincent
I
Van
guess
Gogh thing.
so.
Like, oh, he was drinking absinthe. It's like, no, the dude was a drunk. He would go through bottles
He
and
was an
bottles and
alcoholic.
bottles. It's like he's an alcoholic. Yeah, you start
Ah,
seeing
he
stuff
was
when
a
when you're
I
when
believe
you're
he was
drinking
also
that
like
much.
dyslexic manic depressive. I think he had I think he was like the poster child for like most of like the modern maladies of mental, you know.
Well, still, the point is, drinking that much is not going to help you.
It doesn't
You know what I
help,
mean?
but it is the original definition of what people would say self-medicate. What's the first thing that pops in
Of
people's mind?
course, of course,
It's
yeah.
a bottle of booze,
It's
right?
like
I mean,
it's
you
like
know, oh, he's
how many
self-medicating.
dragons and creatures did that guy see? You know what I mean? Talking about the green fairy and all that. It's like, oh, I bet he saw more than that. When you're drinking that much of anything spirited, anything with distillation liquor in it, like you're going to hallucinate because your brain is trying to struggle to keep you alive, you know?
At the very least, you know, I don't know. I just remember I don't drink very much these days. I'll have a drink every once in a while. It's just, you know, I miss the tastes. I really enjoy the flavor of alcohol and beer and wine, but I do not like the way it feels anymore. So it's just like, screw it. But I don't like when I would drink and get that hangover and I feel like my body's made out of sand. Like no more blood, it's like sand.
I think it just depends on your amount
No
of drinking and
fun.
how
So
much water you have in your system too. 'Cause I drink
I went
beer
for the
quite a
record,
bit and I
probably.
love
You
it.
know, I
Yeah,
might
as
have
I
been
say,
going for the
if you're going
record.
for winning,
Maybe that's what it was.
and if you're searching for
I
the
don't think I
brontosaurus,
was.
you know what I mean? Yeah, you're gonna find what you're looking for. You know what I mean? It's one
Yeah,
of those
if
things.
if you're taking the inner path to find the dinosaur, then
Yeah, you're
that's
probably
not what
gonna
I was
find
doing.
it.
I was just fun. No, I'm joking. Yeah, you know, changes.
The other creature I was looking up to,
Changes.
actually, speaking of changes, is the
Yes.
phoenix. I was doing some light research on
Ah,
it.
very cool.
Yeah, I like the idea of that. Like it's, it's one of those like rebirth kind of a thing, and like, they go up and go grow up in flames and come back out of ashes. It's a pretty cool concept, but that story of them is not very there's not a whole lot to them actually. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, they're this mythological bird with powers of, rebirth. That's it. Not like, oh,
Yeah.
they're, creatures that can, give you this power of sight or something wild. It's just like, no, these things, they live, they die, they're made out of fire, and they're really beautiful, and they fly around, and you're lucky if you see one, because they come once every, well, one of them says once every 5,000 years, and they only are seen by a couple people because they know not to be seen. And then it's like other ones, like if you're able to find a hatchery of them, like basically their eggs turn to gold. I was like, man, there's so many weird stories about them,
Interesting.
but they're none of them. They're all
Very
soft stories, is what
interesting.
I was saying. Soft in the theory of like, there's not that much to them. There's not like a whole lore of like, wow, this thing, eats humans or something wild. It's just like, no, they're really pretty. It's like one of the
Yeah.
only creatures that when I was searching for creatures, I'm like, that's it. Like that, there's no like crazier story to it. Like, no, they're just cool flame birds that die and then they come right back. It's okay.
It looks like you and I had very similar experiences. I went down the rabbit hole with dinosaurs that are purported to be either, still walking around somewhere, or, the Civil War picture of the pterosaur, the pterodon that was shot down, and you've got all these guys. It's obviously been faked. There's so many. It was weird how reptiles
Was it
were such a
pterodon, you
dead
said?
end. What was this? I still have it somewhere. It was a pterosaur, I believe, that they claimed. In America, it seems that they always. I don't think there even is a pterodon. Is there a pterodon? It sounds like a Power Ranger. Anyway,
I was
the
just about to say,
pterosaur, which
I know it was a Power Ranger, I'm sure, but I don't know.
Pterodon. I saw this YouTube thing that popped up. It says how the Power Ranger buttons and wristbands actually work, and I was like, not clicking that. Don't let yourself know. There are some rabbit holes.
What time is it? I don't have time for that.
Yeah, like, don't get me wrong. I'm just as down to learn about Jedi and Sith philosophical differences as anybody. Again, back to that Star Wars, but I can't be figuring out, that other thing I was just talking about now that my brain is on Star Wars. The dinosaurs all over the world that they believe, whether it's a pterosaur in America or the Ozarks, or it does not seem to yield anything. It yields about as much proof as proving the reptilian people, but there's actually more, I feel like, for reptilian people, which is hilarious. I had to start looking at reptilian people. I couldn't find anything in the way of a non-sentient reptile. There's just is
like just a large reptile of some sort, really.
They're all these dead ends or long time hoaxes. They all did not seem to yield anything worthwhile to me. And again, we have a link right here, and it says scan to call. If you scan it, then we'd be able to. If you have there's something we're missing. I want to know if there is a big aminole somewhere.
Or if you have one that you like, just
or if you have one, yeah. Also, we're at 9midnight@gmail.com, at 9midnight on all the socials. If you want to send us a picture or link us to something, and I want to know, prove me wrong. I don't think there's actually been a giant, and that doesn't include, like, what is it, the monitor, the Komodo dragon. Komodo dragon is real. I believe in that.
Seen them.
The closest thing, seen them. The closest thing, it sounds like. Besides the tuatara, which it looks like small like a lizard, but technically it falls into the same family as a dinosaur. There are no more dinosaurs of this kind since they were dominant at the early Jurassic. Like when the Jurassic era came, this kind of reptile was, and this is the tuatara. They're still on New Zealand because New Zealand was sinking for a long time. And so they just kept getting a little bit smaller and smaller and climbing up the mountain, and now they still exist there. That is the closest thing to actual dinosaur, which they are actually a real dinosaur. You have to give it up. They're probably that big. They fit on my lap, but 100% real genus, species, phylum, all of that goody.
First thing you read is that they are not lizards; they are reptiles.
They are reptiles. They're not lizards. Yeah.
Which would make them dinosaurs, exactly.
Well, when you look at it more into it, they start falling into more specific qualifiers for dinosaurs. So that's what's cool about them. Let's see. Besides that, no large dinosaurs. It seems in Alaska. There was a man who was a hunter who probably found, a dinosaur frozen in ice, and I guess it was starting to thaw a little bit. The story goes that as soon as he found it, it seems like it was probably, seen as a blessing at the moment, and so he got as much meat out of it to feed his dogs as he could, and then And then by the time right? Yeah, I mean,
Crazy.
can you
I was
imagine
like, oh
finding
my
a dinosaur
God.
and being like, the first thought you think of is meat, the dogs will live.
I mean, I guess if you're starving or
y-
you're like last minute, you're like,
if
okay, this is it, you know? And I
but
thought
the
they
other thing
smelled bad on
too,
the outside. Yeah,
now
I did the
you're
reference.
doing it. I know. Now I got you doing the Star Wars
That's the only thing I
references.
could think. You
right?
said dinosaur in the snow. My brain instantly went there. You're like, oh, and he ate him. Like, probably had to cut him open to eat him. I mean,
Tauntauns had fur. They looked like some sort of mammal. We're not
I
going to
know,
do
but
this right
still,
now. Don't.
it doesn't matter. It's all
um,
same. Mythical
yeah.
creature. It's
And
all
then I get,
same.
this man's story about finding the animal frozen in the ice. It is the most like accepted. Yeah, it probably happened. By the time that he led them back to the area, it looked like this chunk of ice had like fallen down into the water and everything. So probably the body got washed out to sea. It like as things were melting. He found some meat. He survived, and then by the time he came back, the other thing too. What if it was a frozen whale? What if it was decayed?
Right.
The
Yeah. Yeah.
story is he thought it was a dinosaur. So who knows?
What makes you wonder too, like
Mm,
dinosaurs, reptiles, they're all cold blooded, right? So wouldn't it be pretty much impossible for them
you
to
don't
be
think
out there?
no, not in the theories of like the fast freezes and everything.
I mean, it would be dead, like, you know what I mean, like dead pretty quick. It would be frozen and mummified, right?
not mummified. It would just be like even like the mammoths that were basically flash frozen. These
Gotcha.
things
Okay. Preserved.
were
Preserved, not mummified then.
preserved. Yeah, not even mummified because the brain matter didn't even start to go bad until it hit today's air. Like it
Right.
was
Oxygenated and
exactly. I think that and I could be very wrong on some of these details, but I believe that
we're not
it was
scientists, we're
frozen so
entertainers.
fast. And yeah, someone called us out for not being scientists. I want to thank that guy. I liked your comment. We are not scientists. That is true. 100%.
Strictly for entertainment.
In the pursuit of science, can one not say that they are not to themselves not a scientist? Not. And while you think about that, sir, I want you
Too
to have a
many
better
nuts.
comment than calling us out on not being scientists, because we never claimed to be, and it's a wonderful thing.
I also don't remember telling anyone to bet money on all of my information, so I'm okay with not being called out. I'm like, yeah, I know. Thank you for reminding me.
If
I
you
was a
ever want to
scientist.
bet on anything that I say or claim, I do take donations for thank yous on the good advice, but no sending me bills if it doesn't work out.
Also, the numbers 3 and 13 on the wheel. What's the wheel called? That game called?
Roulette.
Thank you. Yeah,
I was
3 and
literally
13.
I was gonna say 23. 23 is always good.
23.
What's mine?
Yeah.
Is it 23? It's red 23.
Yeah, it was 20.
For me,
Red
right?
23.
Man.
Yeah. 3. We played 3,
Ooh,
13,
wow.
and 23.
Get me out of here now. Get me out of here. I can't win anymore before I lose. It just doesn't happen like past it. We gotta get out of here now. All right, put everything on red 23. Red 23.
That was an amazing
night. Let's get out of here for real. What an insane. But that's
There's no way it could
like
happen on 13. Bang, happens on 13.
Always bet
the worst part is it was 50 cents table, so it's not like we're making millions. When like $18 and we're stoked, like everybody's looking at us like we're insane. We're just happy for the win because it shouldn't happen. You know what I mean? I love that.
I mean, it was a fun night. We like to not lose the money that we want to still have tomorrow. But winning, I mean, what we might get like what $50-$60, but damn, what
it was like $18 a pop. You know what I mean? At 50 cents, it was like $18 a pop. So it's like, every time you win, you're winning $18 and you put $1 in, it's like 36 to 1 odds again. it's fun to win, but it's also one of those things like unexplained, like this should not be happening, that you are calling out numbers left and right.
Yeah. I mean, that's why when I was like, $10 right there, $50, $5 more. That's what I was like, that was the wild thing.
Exactly.
Oy vey. Oi, oi, oi. Very, very, very interesting to do that.
Something else
Now,
I
if you
thought
do
was
have a
pretty
gambling
interesting.
problem, please look for a place to do that, because gambling isn't always good for
Look for
everyone.
help. Look for
People
help.
don't know
When when
when
the
to
fun
stop.
stops, I believe
So,
is yeah. When the fun stops, I
yeah.
believe is a brochure. Live in Vegas. I see that
Which
so
brings me
much.
to my next point. I don't want to talk about anything except gambling anymore, so that's what the new podcast is all about. 9 Midnight is all about gambling. Guys, I can't take any more. I'm in. What you bet
I've
me?
got a
I'm in.
system worked out. See, and
Basically, I
depending
take
upon what
every
the
single bet,
chronological number on the dice
and
is,
no matter what, I'll always come up on top. I just shake hands with everybody
I'm never
everywhere.
down because
And
I'm
then when it
always
doesn't
up.
work out, I
That
say,
guy.
I am sorry. I did look into
The other thing.
reptilian people as well. Oh, go on.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh no, what were you gonna say? That's a whole long.
I was looking into funny enough with that Manticore, I was like, man, I wonder if that was like another story from other cultures too. And there's a whole culture of like mixed humans with lions, but it's always in places where people got killed by lions and tigers and stuff like that. Even like in the Himalayan mountains, there's a half woman, half uh or half female, half lion or tiger, and it's said to lure
Not a
men into
bear?
the
Oh my.
yeah, right. It's said to lure them into the mountains and kill them if they were unfaithful to their wives. It's like that is
That's
somebody's
interesting.
wife sitting around saying, "Hey, if you cheat on me, this creature's going to come down. When you go in the mountains and go see your mistress, this creature's going to come down and get you." And you're trying to
Well,
make the whole culture afraid of this creature.
tales of warning. Those are my always all. Those are always my favorite kind of animals or myths or legends, or don't go out because dot dot dot, those kind of stories. Even most all fairy tales, the Germanic, Grimm, Mother Goose fairy tales, those are all basically just meant to scare kids into not leaving the front yard. You know what I mean?
Right,
So
or to stop
it's
them from
interesting.
doing something that they shouldn't be doing, or warn somebody of danger. It's like just it's interesting that you can't just be like, "Hey, this is a dangerous area. Be careful." You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
here's why. Look at
exactly.
all these things that this is the reason why this is dangerous. It's like, okay, nobody believes that it's dangerous. Let's make up a shrieking woman who can drag you in. You know what I mean? Underwater.
Yeah.
Actually, there was another one too that I was looking up, has nothing to do with Manticore, or that I heard of. One of my other friends, he's from Ireland. He was telling me about, uh, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's like a seahorse thing that has like tentacle hair, and it
Yeah.
would come up and grab little kids, and it's sticky all over, and it would drag you down. I'll look it up really quick and find out what it is, but they're in like the
It
locks
sounds
where
like It sounds like the creature just outside the mines of Moria. Speak, friend, and be let pass. But then, as soon as they open the door, the creature, like, it was like a squid, but even more arms. It comes out and grabs them and pulls them under. Yikes. Or it sounds like something that would inspire someone to come up with the idea of Pennywise the Clown. We all float down here. Ah, she was so cool.
right. I love it.
Oh man. Did you figure out what it was?
No, I'm looking it up right now. I'm trying to find I typed in Irish sheep monsters, which was a giant rabbit hole. Didn't realize that. So let me look for it really quick here.
Let me see. And while we got that going, I also did. Funny that he brought up Sleestacks earlier on. I was looking into reptilian humanoids. Reptilian humanoids are, no matter what you do, someone might say they got a video, they've got proof this way, that way. I just don't know. It just is not. I like the ones that talk about, oh, we saw, the guy we saw, his arm, something falls out of his arm. That means that he's got the rebreather connected. So all of these things, my favorite explanation of it ever, I was service technician and I went to a woman's house. Elgin knows this one. He had to fix it for me. Elgin had to fix everything for me when I had that service technician job. Man,
I remember this one very well.
Anyway, you see that proof? I needed him for everything. So this lady, as I was trained to tell her that her stuff was all messed up, she just wanted to talk about the reptilians. She was from Hawaii, and she said that they lived under the volcano, and I think she knew exactly where the entrance was. It had something to do with which was the family, which banking family? It doesn't matter. I don't want to bring it up, but it had to do with the banking families. Oh, yep, I remember. Yep, it was them. Anyway, I'm not gonna say it. So it's convoluted. I like the idea that maybe in times past there was the humanoid, reptilian that, that the entire time they helped us along the way, or even that they're pulling the strings, that we're only pretending to have a civilization. Really what it is we're just breeding, and all the children that we think don't make it, come of age, are actually being siphoned off to make the milkshakes, the people shakes for them. I mean, there's all these crazy things. It was oddly disappointing this go around looking into the reptilians. The best stuff, again, Bibliotheca Pleiades, and oh man, I lost the other site, but it's on the tip of my tongue. Did you find that thing yet? Your face looks ready.
Yeah, I totally did find it. It's called the Kelpie.
Oh, okay. The Kelpie. Okay, so another cool one that they put into there.
Yeah, and it's like exactly. It's from It's Scottish, actually. I was wrong. Irish, Scottish.
Okay.
It basically is just like a horse with a tail, a fish tail, and it can change shapeshift. Actually, now I'm reading too. It would invite you to ride it. It could extend its neck to hold up to 11 riders, and you and your friends would get on it and wouldn't be able to get off, and it would take you below and drown you and kill you. And it's sticky, so if you reached out and touched it, it still wouldn't be able to get you.
No matter what, if you touch it, it's pulling you down. It's like a sarlacc.
Yeah, so it's
water.
Basically exactly. Exactly. It's funny because it's like it's all just okay, stay away from the water edge. Everyone, all kids, stay away from the edge. You guys keep going over into this water edge, and yeah, okay, you guys aren't going to listen. There's a Kelpie in there.
And what else is going to scare these kids from going over there? It's murky. I don't have time to watch them.
Well, you got to think too, in the time period, it's like there's no television, no, no camera system stuff. So they can't be like, no, there isn't. Oh yeah, well, so-and-so's kid that got pulled in the water, remember he died? Kelpie got him. You know what I mean? Kelpie got him.
This is the age before the internet. This is the age before telephones and child protective services. If your child had the balls to tell you, I don't
go against your story,
that Dad, I don't believe there is a Kelpie in there. There's a lot of reasons that the town center will accept for why your child didn't make it through the spring. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It was a hard spring.
It was not uncommon for a child to be missing in quotations. You know what I mean? Oh, we don't have enough food for everybody.
My kid got the hay pox. No more questions.
Kelpie got mine. Move on.
Kelpie got mine.
Telling me,
Yeah.
what happened to your kid? Kelpie again. Fucking
Oh, you
things
know
are
what?
prevalent everywhere.
My son didn't believe in the Kelpie either, and he's gone now.
He doesn't wash dishes, and now
Why don't you go
Kelpie got
looking for
him.
the Kelpie?
I mean,
Why don't you go looking for the Kelpie? He's out there.
yeah,
My
prove me
favorite
wrong.
Kelpie depiction might have been old Greg from Mighty Boosh. He was kind of a Kelpie looking man. Now we're
There's
kind of
also one
crossing
in
the
Percy
bridge between
Jackson. I
Kelpie
just realized.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they put him in there. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's interesting. I was scrolling through like
My wife
Kelpie
just got those
images, and I'm
books.
like, oh, that's Percy. I'm like, that's Percy Jackson. Wow, good little movie. I like that one too.
It was a pretty good one. It reminds me the way you describe it as the tail of a fish, kind of like the Capricorn. You know, I've actually tried to figure out where that chimera animal comes from, a goat half, but everyone accepts it as part of just this no questions asked. Who started that? Who started the mergoat?
Yeah, and what was the purpose in that one? By the way, Chimera, great golf course if you're listening.
By the way, Chimera makes me hate that episode in Full Metal Alchemist. Seriously, experimenting on your
Haven't
daughter
seen that
and
one yet.
dog.
Is that the live action one
mean,
or the animated?
No. I don't think I'm going to hurt anyone's feelings when I say the live action versions of any Japanese anime are to be taken with more than just a grain of MSG.
MSG, not only. Geesh.
Oh man, salt's not cutting it. Let me put it that way. You know,
it's not going to do it.
And actually, you know what? You are right, because in the live action movie, they did the worst story arc. Me and my friend, we talked about this. We watched it together, and as we're watching Full Metal Alchemist, the live action, we're like, no, they're not doing this one, are they? Oh no! And it's the one where the guy. Oh gosh, no, not a fan. But,
yep.
You know, yeah, visually all right. Oh, terrible, but
it was interesting the way they tried to do it. But
I mean, it's a great story. It was just so sad. Oh, it was so sad. But
speaking of Percy Jackson and all that stuff, like they have a lot of creatures in that movie. Now that I started thinking about it, they had a lot. They had giants. They had all kinds of stuff. It's all Greek, mythology.
Cyclops,
so
they had the Cyclops. I guess his brother was a Cyclops. I did only see the movies. My wife just got the books, like I said. So now I believe 5 or 6 books now reside in this house, and so we'll be able to take a look through those. I've got a lot of books that are on my stack right now, so I'm going to be getting to it. But there are and within those. I guess his brother was a Cyclops because he was the offspring of Poseidon and a water nymph, I believe, and so if he were female, the female offspring would have been another water nymph, I believe, or but he was a Cyclops, which is very interesting. You know, the way that. Why would that make a Cyclops? Why didn't it make a merman?
Well, I don't know the math on that. I'm not even going to try to protest.
The host doth protest, thus mucheth protesteth. So, as looking with a lot of these other ancient animals that don't seem to be really, brought up, claimed to be around today, Nessie, that was the other one. River monsters, river Nessie. Dinosaurs. So along with Nessie in America, we've got Ogopogo. There's, Bessie. There are what my favorite idea, and this is what I like for basically any sort of cryptid or UFO or even goblin, fairy. If people think they saw any of the above, I like the idea that perhaps it's coming through a portal in like a dimensional rift or something, like it's accidentally swimming through a shimmer that brings it here, and then it swims like through a shimmer that takes it.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
You know what I mean?
Go on. I like that.
So So like going out of phase, it's a similar thing to like what Bigfoot does. Where does Bigfoot go when he turns his back? You know, when Bigfoot turns around, he's
Ultimate camouflage, whole
turning.
nother thing.
Not even camouflage. He entered. That was him shifting into another forest on another Earth. So we're
He's
never
able
gonna
to fold
find
into space, huh? Dig it.
basically. So interdimensional species, whether it be an accident or you know, I like that for the again when we were talking about how do people how could it, why would an alien even come here? Honestly, it would be a folding of a space of some sort, and if you can do that, you probably just fold it to anywhere. It probably figuring it out would be the hardest
Like,
thing
why do you
because
go to why do you go to
if
have a picnic? You know what I mean? That kind of an idea.
well, I mean, imagine if you lived, you know, imagine if it didn't matter. Maybe with this technology, I can build my house on a remote planet that no one else will even find in 1,000 years. With their looking, but I found it, and everyone else can find their own place. And then there's city centers where you just portal to, and then it's like, you know
Yeah,
what I
flip
feel
you
like
here.
doing? I feel like I feel like taking my wife for a picnic
Want
on
to grab some tea on this planet? Yeah.
on this yeah, I want to go to Earth because I really like the Earl Grey tea at that one place that closed down in 1974. So I'm gonna go there in like spring of '73 because that's when the baker really hit his stride. I don't know where he went after that, so I'll have to go back to
Right.
to the spring
Keep
of
going back to that
'73.
time. Yeah.
You know, like if you're a fourth dimensional being and you can just pick anywhere to just pop in, you know, go have a croissant at your favorite place, but your favorite place is only 73, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'm just gonna go to
Would you
1973 real
age?
quick.
Because would you age in doing that too?
I
Because I mean, if you think about like Nessie's been around for how many hundreds of years, and it's been a myth for that long. Like, is she getting older, or same thing with like Bigfoot? I think of that like if you're saying in that aspect, like, is it the same Bigfoot always? Because
well,
maybe there's only like
I
two or three. You know what I mean?
you know, if I stepped through a shimmer right now and it was 200 years in the future, I aged 2 seconds and everyone else I know is gone and under the ground. But then
Right.
if I step through, so if I show up for 5 seconds in 200
So
years and
time's
then I
moving on
skip
past you.
2,000 years, you know, and if you don't have control over it, maybe it is just the same one or two, and it accidentally skips into our visibility, our line of sight only so often. You know, that's one that I like. You know, there's like an alignment. It's kind of like the what is it? It's kind of like in Thor before the multiverse, they had like the realms. Oh, the realms. They're all overlapping each other. Remember that one when they were doing that? It was the plot of the Dark Dimension, I believe.
Yeah, I remember that
And
one.
he was saying that like when they align, like the veil is thin type of stuff. You know, I mean, we know that the moon pulls the ocean waters high. We know that alignments affect certain things. You know, the sun can make a blip that affects our satellites. You know what I mean? The aurora borealis is a real thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
What else is
Yeah.
out there we don't know about? What if when a solar a supernova occurs at that moment, you know, the butterfly on one side and the tsunami on the other side, we don't know half the shit we want to know. And, you know, I can say that because I'm a scientist
Right. I am
fan.
a Google scientific
Fan.
fan.
hmm I am a scientistologist. I know because that's man. I like science. No, no, you know what I
I
am?
have
I'm
a
someone who likes
DHP in
things. I've got
bullshittery
a exactly. I've got a strong
fluent in four
fascination with
different
that which
languages
I
of
don't
bull
know.
crap,
And
and
since I admit to not knowing a lot, I'm allowed to take good interest in anything. And I'm sticking to it.
I'm a
So
firm believer and a deceiver of all. So take what you
I,
want.
I, I, I I hope that when you imagine the devil on your shoulder, this mug right here, and keep it on your right. You know why.
No, it's
Anyway,
gonna no.
I
That's a
don't know,
funny
man.
one.
Yeah. I really wanted to find more dinosaurs that are supposed to be alive today. That actually really bothered me. The reptilian stories, I feel like, are something that, we're going to start diving into, xenopolitic ideas. We're going to start diving into David Icke type stuff, who, again, very interesting character.
What about all the conspiracies where they talk about the dinosaurs aren't really dinosaurs, all the bones that they're finding? Have you heard that stuff or heard any of those stories?
I there are some, there's so much out there that sometimes you hear something and it's like, and your brain immediately looks the other way. I think that's one of those. I don't.
Well, let's
What
put it
is it
like this.
then?
Do you believe? Yeah, I
Okay.
was gonna say, do you believe that there were dinosaurs?
I think those bones can't come from a creature. I'm not saying we got the drawing right. I'm not saying that we got the
Okay,
skin
you're on the
right.
same page as me. Yeah, I think there was some kind of large creature, probably not the way we imagine it, because we're using
We're
what we have
supposing either
now.
scales or feathers, right?
Yeah, well, we're using what we know now for back then, which never works out.
But
Even
at
in
the
our
same
own belief
time,
of evolution, it wouldn't work out.
no matter what it is, whatever it is those bones come from, we're calling a dinosaur. I think that
Dinosaur
people
bone
who
is good enough for me.
dinosaur bone is good enough for me. If it comes out that someone says no, they didn't have pink skin, it was more of a fuchsia, this is all wrong, and someone starts knocking shelves over, I'm going to say that guy needs to calm down because that didn't matter. Or if
Yeah,
they say it wasn't scales, it was feathers, or if we find out that they weren't cold-blooded, they were warm-blooded, I still don't think it's that big a deal. We can still call them dinosaurs
right.
because they
Does
were
that
bigger,
change
and
the fact that they
that's
were here or not? Or
yeah, I'm not. I don't. I would never argue that that those bones
that's
came
it's like
from a creature,
stupid minutia that people want to be right. You know what I mean? Like, who
and
cares? Yes,
that's
you're
what I
right.
don't care about. If it's just about the minutia of technically you shouldn't be calling it a dinosaur because then yeah, I mean, I only claimed the tuatara from New Zealand to be a dinosaur because of looking into it.
Well, I
It
mean, in the
last
same
living
aspects,
species of there. You
so are
know,
sharks and alligators, all that stuff. They're all
yeah,
living dinosaurs, things that
and
have came from that same genealogy for thousands of years.
crocodilians and alligators and turtles are
Sharks, all that. Yeah.
when I looked up, like, are there dinosaurs living today, literal scientific places, resources will say the descendants that are still around and match closely to what they were would be, here's your top 10, and they're all crocodilians and a couple tortoises, every single one of them. And it's funny because you don't see the Komodo dragon on there,
Is that just
so
more of a recent one? I wonder. Then maybe like that, like the Komodo dragon isn't something as old as like the crocodilian species, or you know what I mean? Maybe it's kind of like
it's
iguanas and all
likely
that
that,
stuff. Like you know what I mean? They're more
yeah,
newer.
and it's a newer species, but because of having no other predators, it had the ability to grow large. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. No
So
bigger predator. Yeah.
nothing was ever bigger than it, and there were a couple things bigger, and it had the ability to just keep getting bigger. And
You saying that, reminds me of what I was talking about with the manticore not eating elephant. Maybe that's why. Maybe
mm,
because they were as big as
mm.
that. Like an elephant isn't a predator, but it's as big as one. Maybe that's why they didn't eat them. You know what I mean?
Well, I
Most
mean,
most predators go after things that are bigger than them, but they have to be slower or in some way not able to think as fast as them or maneuver as fast as them. You know what I mean? So
am I right to believe that some female elephants have tusks as well? Or is it certain species of elephants where the females also have
you got me
tusks?
on that one. I don't know. You got me on that one. I could probably
So,
look it up really fast.
I mean, any creature, look, even if you're as big as an elephant, if you see tusks, you'd be smart not to fuck with it. You know what I mean? I mean, a wild boar can destroy your life. I mean, look what it did to,
They
come
literally
on,
have
losing my
vests.
reference. Yeah, I
Sorry,
know.
they literally have vests for hunting
Okay.
dogs for that. When I was in Texas with my cousin, they have like vests for hunting wild boar, because a boar will shred you, and they know they will run past you and shred you open.
Look what it did to King Robert Baratheon. Anyway, so, and I mean, he was strong. I mean,
He was a king, for God's
Mark
sake.
Addy. Yeah. Tell you what, man, Mark Addy, great actor. I think that he
So
did
actually,
the
yeah, you were right.
Flintstones
So
sequel,
African
though.
elephants, the African elephants, the male and the female,
Yes.
do have tusks. They
Male
both
and the
do.
female. So in that where the
But
Manticore,
Asian elephant, no, not. I mean, well,
but not
Egypt.
Asian
So Egypt,
elephant, right?
Africa. I mean, all in the same area. But Asian elephants, no.
Okay. So yeah, even still, if just some have tusks, I imagine that you wouldn't really try to mess with them. But there would be some cases. There wouldn't be some legend of they never go after, unless it's like a mongoose and a snake type thing.
Well, I think of it like like tigers hunt elephants. You know what I mean? When they get hungry enough, but they don't naturally go after elephants, because they're bigger, and it's probably more frightening when an elephant uses tools and can pick you up and will slam you on purpose, not because it's just trying to keep you away. It knows it can slam you. It knows it can crush your head, because it knows its strength. That elephants are super smart, actually. You know what I mean? Like I said, they can use tools. They can stamp things out. They know how to crush open coconuts and all that. It's pretty cool what they can do. And if you knew you could do that,
draw
why would you fear?
paint?
Yeah, they paint. Yeah, like why would you fear a tiger if you knew you could grab one by the tail and smash its head on the ground? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe that's again another reason why it's like, oh, Manticore. You know what I mean? Oh, Manticore. The elephant's like, yeah, get out of here.
I don't know. I don't really like any of the ideas of the chimeras. I think that they're cool, but like centaurs.
Well, when you say chimeras, you mean like the mixed creatures?
Any of the mixed creatures that are throughout history, like the Manticore, like again, like the classic chimera, which I think had two heads, and there's a classic chimera which is slightly different. Goat, lion, and snake, I believe. There's the griffin, which is scorpion. The bot,
hippogriff,
eagle and a lion, hippogriff. All of these mashup animals that are throughout history, and even the dragon really is a mashup animal if you look at it. In a way, from a certain point of view. Hello there. Anyway, I don't know, man. It's just I tried not even watching any this week. So they all seem far-fetched. You're mixing cold-blooded animals and warm-blooded animals. You're mixing insects with mammals. These are combinations that don't make a lot of sense to me. I mean, they're too fantastic to believe that anyone would ever come across them. The dinosaur, I picked the dinosaur because I actually think that, we could actually find.
I wonder, how many times people have found like remains
underground
that are like
or something,
like mashed up together, and they think, oh, you know what I mean? This is one of those mythological creatures, because see, these bones are all together, even though it could have been just two animals that, died together trying to hunt each other or something crazy, you know what I mean? And end up melding together because of pressure and all that under the Earth's core or whatever.
I don't think that happens nearly as often. Not the way you describe it.
I'm sure
think that
but I'm saying, I'm sure like that's where a lot of the things like, oh, we finally found one. That's where that comes from,
Yeah, I don't think they put them on display unless they're at least 90% sure. Of
course not. No, I think you know what I mean? I think they probably never would put them on display. I bet they would tell everybody so they can get instant famous, and then would retract it, because that's how the academic society works. Like, oh man, we found this, woolly mammoth fully intact, everything's ready to go, we're going to reanimate it. Remember that a couple of years back? And then it was like, oh, actually, no, it's not fully intact, but like 80%, and we can't reanimate it because we don't know how to do that. It's like, well, yeah, no one thought you did.
Yeah, not reanimate.
No one, they were like saying all these
People
crazy
talk big.
claims. It's like, no.
They want to make it seem like there's some really big thing that they can do or something. I
Yeah,
think
they're
that
like,
they
we're
could
going to
probably
take
learn
its
how to
fur and figure stuff
clone,
out from it. I'm sure
or
they can clone to some degree, yeah. Well, they've already done a bunch of cloning, right? Like sheep and rats and turtles and stuff like that.
Supposedly that we don't hear too much about it because I think that ethical issues and everything.
Yeah.
So they don't really talk too much about it because, but
well, the ethics are going to have to be outweighed by the need. You know what I mean? Before that really gets talked about, where it's more open. You know what I mean? It's that whole like, what was that movie that I really like? Oh, The Island. Remember where they have like, they clone you, and they clone you because they keep your body parts that go bad so you can live forever, but then it turns out like, okay, only the rich can do it. That's when the problem starts kicking in, when the whole, who's deserved to live forever, and how expensive is it? You know what I mean?
And that story was interesting because we actually follow the life of a clone who thinks that he's a person. He just thinks that everyone thinks that the disease outside made us forget our trip here. I'm glad that they healed us when we got here. You just weren't grown with the memories of the person that you're grown off of, and we're following him as he tracks down his real person. That one was pretty interesting. I don't know if that was based on The Island by Aldous Huxley, but it may have been. Aldous Huxley, phenomenal author. If you haven't read any of his stuff, he wrote Brave New World. He wrote The Doors of Perception. So very, very, very phenomenal author. From the turn of the century, lights, camera, action, all that good stuff. So I wanted to look into other creatures as well. And
yeah, I was gonna say, did you find any other ones, or do you just have any other ones that like, strike your interest?
This one I know that we're gonna save for another episode entirely, but obviously Bigfoot is the big one. Bigfoot.
Yeah. I'm a believer.
There's something. We know that there was Australopithecus, which was a gigantic ape creature that they say possibly, went extinct around the same time, as maybe the Neanderthals 30,000 years ago, maybe 20,000 years ago, something like that. Not saying that we could interbreed with it. It was more like a giant gorilla. I'm not saying that we could interbreed with a giant gorilla.
I don't know why you said that. I don't know why you brought that up.
Look, stop asking me, everyone. I do not believe it.
Like, no, you can't do it, just so you guys know you can't breed with it. I'm just telling you. Like, all right.
Just making sure everyone
understands. No one's arguing with it.
This isn't like the setup to some joke where I'm like, that lets you know why I'm not allowed to SeaWorld. Well, that doesn't make sense. There are no Australopithecus in SeaWorld. Look, for the person saying that, there are no Australopithecus anywhere in the planet anymore. Okay? So I want you to just think about it. I'm just letting you know. Come on, get with it. So
maybe don't be so critical.
But also the way in mythology, not just modern day where people talk about a Sasquatch, a hairy man in the woods, but the hairy man who lives out of town. In all of mythology, the oldest story of all time that we can find right now, right? The Epic of Gilgamesh. Basically, it's the story of a Sumerian king, the king of Ur or Uruk, and then, first things first, I got to go on a mission, and there's this big hairy beast man, wild as hell, living outside of town, and then, they tame him in a very formidable way. Won't get into it, but there is also a very interesting correlation between these hairy men of the woods and like sex gods and everything. Like, there's something about being a wild man who doesn't give a shit about society, that throughout time, you are listed as basically a woodland nymph sex god. You know, the satyr. Think about a satyr. What happens if you're a young maiden out in the woods? You know, a satyr gonna get you. And they only do one thing.
Right? They're only there for one thing.
Cue the
Exactly.
elevator music, and we're going to the top floor. No stops.
Right. Exactly.
It's like
That's funny. Like I was looking into like just
weird.
well when I was reading in that the Kelpie thing, like a lot of American Indians believe the orcas to be this mythological creature, and they were like telling settlers about it, except for the settlers had seen them, so now they're like, "Oh my god!" Like,
Yeah.
you get told this story of this black and white creature that is flipping other animals into the air for fun, and like they see all that sort of stuff, and they're like trying to describe it. If you think like back in those days, you're trying to describe that to somebody who you're like, "Wow, I know you're not from this land. Let me explain this to you," and you're like, I just saw that. Like, oh my God, that creature you're talking about is a real thing. I just saw that. And they're like, what? It is? That'd be totally a freaky, frightening thing to feel. You know what I mean? You're like, yeah, we just see this large fin come out of the water. Like, no, it's connected to this big giant thing with teeth and white and black spots. You know what I mean?
But then again, trying to learn someone's language, and then there's always how fun the telephone game is. I could tell
Right,
you
how
a
much is
secret
lost
right
in
now, and by the
translation.
time you tell someone, yeah, how close are we? There's a detailed lost or added in it, on accident. And imagine it just, who knows what people think. If someone sees a whale fighting a squid back then, it's one animal. You know what I mean? This thing
Yeah,
had
exactly.
tentacles coming out of
Exactly.
its mouth, and it had an
It was as big
eyeball
as
and a
the
beak
ship,
in its mouth. It was like a whale with a sarlacc in its mouth. Just I keep
Right,
thinking about that
exactly.
sarlacc. You know what I mean? That
And
that
I was
really is
actually
the
watching
ultimate creature.
that show too on Netflix. Just thinking about orcas again and crazy creatures. Like orcas are
Mm-hmm.
the only aquatic mammals that like kill things for fun. I'm
For
like
fun,
they're
yeah.
like the murderers of the ocean. Like they literally will just go see if they can do it and do it, and they'll be like, oh, I wonder if I can kill this thing, and they'll go after it. They'll get a plan of attack between a couple of them, and they'll go after and kill it. They also are the only hunting species that will hunt in packs like that. Well, they use like not tools per
Do you
se,
mean
but in
aquatic? Do you mean aquatic? They
aquatic.
use
I'm
like
sorry,
pack,
yeah, they'll use
because
packs.
it
Like
sounds like they
there'll be
hunt
like
like
three or four of them.
wolves almost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They'll use like three or four that they like to hunt with each other, and they will go after like seals and stuff.
Yeah.
It's crazy. They even had
Well,
there was an episode where there was this like frozen like
we're gonna take just a
iceberg.
quick break. Is that all right?
Yeah, yeah. Go
Just a
ahead.
quick break. Let me calm this down, and then we'll be back in just a moment. Oh, I should probably take us off of this. Watch this guy. But we're still on the front. And so then I have to go to here, and I have to exclude this scene as well. And that's when we'll.
I would no. You can turn it on, and then
Backness.
once it starts getting warm.
While Elgin's on mute, I'm going to take this moment to talk about the sponsor that I made up in my head at this very moment. Cereal brand cereal flakes, now with yogurt covered chocolate bits. Don't forget the raisin edition. That's going to come in the separate pack. There's going to be 12 per box of cereal. That way you know there are 12. They are freeze dried. Thank you. I'm glad to have you back. Each individual packet lets you know that there should be, when you open it up, you pour the raisins first. Then you fill the same bag with the cereal. That'll show you a single serving. So if you want a double serving,
pronounced Suriel brand cereal.
So,
it's French, I think. I don't know.
I've never understood accent marks. It's a failing of the American language.
Umlaut, I think it is.
Umlaut? There's an umlaut in there somewhere.
Umlaut.
Right?
But like I was saying when we took a break, I was talking about the orcas like being just absolute murderers, man. Like a frightening creature in the water. Like everybody talks about sharks and stuff like that. Like orcas play with their food before they kill them. Sometimes, not always. Like that's that. If you ever get to see that, there's a movie called Blackfish too, or Blackfish.
Oh, okay. I thought you were gonna say Orca.
No, that movie's pretty funny too, actually. But the movie Blackfish, it shows there was a time in SeaWorld where this orca was pissed at this one trainer, and he grabbed him by the ankle and held him underwater just enough until he knew that he couldn't breathe, let him go, and kept doing it. Like he did it like 3 times until they got that guy out of there. And it was only that trainer that he did that to, because there's other trainers in the water. He hated that guy, and he was trying to show it. Is my opinion, obviously, as a marine biologist, scientist. Don't forget that. He hated that trainer.
If you want to check our degrees, you have to like and subscribe, and then we will not just mention your criticism.
I will show you them. Well, I'll have to print them out first, but I will show you them.
Like, subscribe, tell your friends, and we will prove every single degree, or we'll prove ourselves liars, but only your likes and subscribes.
Either way around, you got to find out. But yeah, it's like, man, he personally went after that dude to like torture and try to kill him. And he was torturing him because he knew exactly how far to pull him down and let him back up, and then grab him again and then pull him back down. He didn't like drag him all the way to the bottom or shake him. He just grabbed him just enough to hold him, didn't break his ankle or leg or nothing, just enough to hold him and drowned him. You know, it's like, what a psychopathic creature in the water. You know what I mean? They smack manta rays with their tail for fun. Like, what in the heck?
I mean, from the orca's perspective, he's been
torturing
them his whole life. You know, he was being tortured to do tricks. And and is this the audience?
I'm not saying he was wrong. I'm just saying, geesh.
I don't know. Like, you know, people have got mad at me because I say dogs are people too. I mean, dolphins is people too. Whales are people too. I mean, at some level, you know, and even like cows are people too. I'll eat them. That's fine. You know what I mean? They taste good. You know.
I mean, everything's got a personality. Anything alive, in my opinion, is like,
yeah, exactly.
You should treat it with respect. You know, and the fact that he didn't, look what this creature did.
Exactly. You know, we shouldn't be training things to dance.
To do tricks of any sort.
I mean, honestly, even
that's why my dog does no tricks.
I do in a cute way. I taught mine a couple just so that he'll like understand when to calm the hell down. Doesn't happen obviously every time, but it's not like it's not like a super power trip thing, you know. That doesn't work.
No, but I think too, like, you know, like the biggest
trick
I teach my dog is like,
take it as a super power trip.
Right, exactly. Like, now you're trying to control me versus, okay, if I do this, you'll feed me more, kind of a thing. Yeah, don't forget you're in my water. Like, it's funny that
you're big enough to be food. You're big enough to be food.
Yeah, you're like, you're a
snack. My meals?
You're a snack, and you're gonna torture me and make me feel foolish.
I can't wait. I can't wait till there's a crowd. Can't wait till there's a crowd.
Come on in this bathtub is what he told him. Come on into this bathtub. Let me show you what's going on.
The water's just nice. I mean, I'm not saying it's not terrible that, you know, someone died or something, but also, how do you claim to be an animal professional and you got in the water when the animal clearly didn't like you? You're an animal professional. You didn't know that this fucking animal doesn't like you? You didn't know this animal might have killed you today at all? You didn't know?
I think after that first pull down, I would be doing anything and everything to get away from that creature, not just trying to be like, oh no, this is a crazy, like, no. I'd be doing any and everything to get away from there because my brain would lead me to like, oh, this creature is trying to torture me. Like he's letting me get right to the
It
point where I'm
is.
not moving and then push me back. He was
Yeah.
pushing him back to the surface when he went lifeless, and then he would catch air and then yank him back down. It's like, man, he just knew. He knew, it's a wild thing to think that, you did this to the animal and the animal's getting revenge. I always make fun of Jaws 2 or whatever, whichever one that one is, where you know what I mean? But then it's like, well, orcas did it. After I saw that, I was like, Jaws 2 isn't so ridiculous anymore.
I really think that there are certain animals that are are not going to take it. I think that we
I think
I
all
think that
predatory
certain ones like
animals are like that.
yeah,
That's
I
just
think
my
that
opinion.
if
I
it's
think
a
all
predator,
predatory animals
that
are like that. They're
will
revengeful
probably
and
have
they're
a
very
tough time.
protective.
I believe that, it was because of our friendship with the wolf that led to the dog, and that's why every culture says man's best friend. Everyone knows the dogs are man's best friend. I
Honest
think that
feel.
it's also true probably that cats probably domesticated themselves because they found out they could like eat scraps, and like that's why they're like
Well,
sneaky.
that's what I was thinking about
But
dogs and wolves and stuff like that. Like we tolerated each other because we would kill the big creatures that would go after
it
them,
was
and so
mutually
then we would let.
beneficial.
Yeah, now it's like, oh, okay, cool. They keep our area clean because they pick up all the meat that we don't eat and all the guts and everything. So we allow them in the camp. Now they're our best friends because they're picking up all this diseased, meat and stuff like that we normally wouldn't know what to do with. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how I look at that. But then it was like cats were always feared because they had big cats. There were no like big dogs besides wolves. You know what I mean? But wolves were our friends. Big cats were not.
I mean, not all of them. Not all
Not
wolves were
all.
our friends, but
No,
over
no, but
time we carved friend out of the wolf. You know what I mean?
I feel like most dogs are, pack animals and they want to be around other creatures. It doesn't even matter
Yeah.
if it's, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter what the animal pack is. A dog will roam around with a bunch of different creatures, and you know what I mean? Like they'll befriend them, but like cats don't do that. They have prides, and their prides are their family. And if you're not part of their family, even if you're a cousin of the family, they'll kill you because you're in the pride
Mhm.
and you're now competition. It's weird.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of cats. I wish, but I'm not. Really, really, really am
I think cats are cool.
not.
I'm just allergic, and I just don't like their personalities. So
I,
it's,
I
it's
think
hard for
I'm
me.
at least mildly allergic. Like I really cannot stand the smell. I always smell cats whenever they're anywhere near, and if hair gets in my eye, then I can't breathe. But like it's not like I can be
Same,
around
man.
it, I can
Same.
pet a cat. I can pet a cat, but like if I breathe in a hair or if it's
I'm
not like
I'm
a
the hair
super
and the
clean
dander.
cat, I don't know.
The hair
Yeah,
and the dander, man.
I
My eyes
can
will be swollen red, and I can't breathe. It's crazy.
it can come on me quick. I do think that it would be interesting if we would be able to, uh, bears are not too much different than dogs or wolves rather at least. You know what I mean? I mean even in their face they have a common ancestor. I wonder what it would be like if we would have been able. But that's the thing. It's very rare that people are actually able to. No one's proven themselves to be the longest friend of bear for through thick and thin, right? It's got to be maybe
Yeah,
through
and
thick, but
bears
when it
aren't
gets
like big
thin,
group animals either, though.
bears won't get too thin when your meat is on those bones. You know,
Yeah,
you might be able to
but
get
bears are
through
also like a
thick with
lot
a
more,
bear.
solidarity. Like they are not really into big like groups. It's like their cubs, their family, and even their cubs and their younger once they get big, they get kicked out of their area. You're not allowed to be in there. You know what I mean? It's
I
kind of
guess I
like
was
that.
more like
That type of
I was
animal to
more.
me is like not ever going to be like
I
friendly
guess
or you know what I mean?
yeah. I guess I was more thinking of like suppose if we as people could have bonded with another mammal. I
A
guess is
different
how
type
I
of
was
mammal.
thinking of it.
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah,
More of yeah in the grand scheme of things, if we were able to make dog from wolf, is there a world where we made you know something of
a
bear,
softer
or
version
we
of
had
bear.
larger even in a
Yeah,
way, you know what I mean?
yeah,
I
more
mean,
docile
you
bear.
know I mean, my dog is just a
panda-esque.
herding dog, and he bites me. Yeah, which are actually which are raccoons.
They're
but
actually way
anyway.
more. Yeah, they're way more vicious. By the way,
They can be actually. Yeah, people think
they are
that they're like
super
docile
vicious.
and
Actually,
cute.
no.
Don't fuck with a panda. Fuck with pandas. Don't fuck
Pandas
with
like things
pandas,
that
just
crunch
like you
in their
don't
mouth,
fuck with their cousin, the raccoons.
or koalas, all that sort of stuff. They're mean, man.
Yeah, yeah. Any
Koala's
creature
kind of a
that
mythical creature, man.
I mean, they are like the most poisonous creature ever. Like you shouldn't hold them. I think you can't get scratched by them because they like. I think that they would probably like they're so poisonous and disgusting that if they were not constantly eating eucalyptus, like their body would not like they're both poisonous because of eating pure eucalyptus, but I think it's like the only thing that cleans them from the inside. They've
Right.
adapted to like they're both befouled by and only alive because of the eucalyptus. And like even like their droppings are like some sort of pure distillation. They have one kind of gut bacteria. It processes eucalyptus. Like they're like a messed up weird animal.
Right. Yeah,
So
they're a
like don't
weird,
get within
weird
like
creature.
10 feet of their droppings or something. Like you need a hazmat suit if you live in Australia or something. Probably not true. Like, subscribe, and comment.
Right.
Tell me if I'm wrong. Is
Prove it
Australia
wrong.
teeming with? Yeah, if you come within 200
Australia has the weirdest animals
kilometers
too,
of a
man.
koala, I heard that you instantly your body gets turned inside out. If I'm
Kangaroos
wrong,
can't
like,
hop
subscribe, and tell me
backwards.
why. That
Actually,
I
that's a
don't
thing.
believe.
That's a thing.
No, that I don't believe. They've
I
got
don't know how
to.
they tested
They've
that,
got to.
but
Again,
well, they're
you know
designed to
what?
hop
That's another
forward. So
situation.
hmm.
Another
Talk about a
situation
mixed
where
animal, huh? What's that a mix with?
they see.
Like a camel, a horse,
No,
and a
not a
human.
camel. Where do you see a
Have you seen
camel
that?
in
That coloration and how tall they are.
maybe Joe Camel?
Their
Ooh,
fur.
the coolest camel there ever was. When I think about
That's just because
Joe
he
Camel and how
smokes.
they got rid of him in the Navy, was that what he was about? Wow, I just thought
Otherwise,
he
he's
was
just a
awesome.
cowboy camel, which is ridiculous. But when you put that cigarette in his mouth, it's
Hey,
cool.
I saw him out on the town in New York City as well. The man was cool
Right?
everywhere he went.
Cowboys
Just
come to
saying.
the city. What are you trying to say?
Cowboys
Because
come
he's
to
a
the city.
camel, he can't come to the
So they
city.
don't.
That's camelist, man. That you're a camelist.
Not I. Not I. No, sir. In fact,
I was raised around camels, you know.
I just, some of my best friends are camels.
This is a free camel neighborhood. I don't know why you
Yeah, exactly.
go on full on defense.
Full on defense. What did he say? Anyway, Joe Camel was cool, but he didn't sell cools. Anyway, kangaroo doesn't look like a camel to me. A kangaroo looks, I guess, kind of like a rabbit.
A
Like
rabbit.
A rabbit that only got a big bottom. Big booty hoes. That's it. Like if rabbits just got really big in the back, kind of big up top, that's really like honestly, that they just kind of look like rabbits to me. Like they look like they're
Like a buff,
giant
tall
rodent
rabbit, I
family.
guess.
A buff, tall rabbit.
A buff,
and
tall
I think
rabbit
that's really
with man-looking
buff,
hands.
tall rabbit. I mean, man, they are tough. They are tough. I wouldn't mess with one.
I don't like that.
I
I don't
wouldn't
like
mess
that
with
they
a
can
kangaroo.
grab you. That's creepy to me.
You
And
know
then
a
kick
lot
the
of
living
really
crap out of you. That's
weird
crazy.
kangaroo knowledge. I'm realizing that you brought up kangaroo meat at Jack in the Box.
I've only been there like twice too, which is weird. I do find
Australia
that creature
or Jack in the
fast.
Box.
Yeah, Australia. No, Jack in the Box. My God. Have you seen this body? This is not an athletic body. This is a Jack in the Box built body.
And see, that goes back to like some, if you're just not from a place, like it can just be hard just to exist within like the time space that is that place,
Right?
I feel
That place
like
is
every time you
lost in
see
time.
someone from Australia, they're either like they're like Chris Hemsworth, or rather like they make Chris Hemsworth look like the sickly kid from town. Oh, good for him. He found work in California.
He's like the
you
city
know,
kid. You
or
know what I
that,
mean?
yeah, but then, but to like everyone in America, we're just like the natural athleticism. Oh, and it's just
Look how
like, yeah, the
exotic
genetics
he
it
is.
takes to
Yeah.
survive in the place
Have
that
you
has
ever
no
been there?
ozone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's the big one of the bigger continents that has the least population and
yeah,
is not
hilarious.
growing that fast. That's the craziest part too. So many people there, and they're not having that many kids. Why? Oh, because the place is inhospitable as hell.
Yeah,
I forget what the math
yeah.
is on it. There was something I was reading about that place because of the creatures. There are like creatures and the desolation of it. Like most of the cities are all coastal, and then only like I think it was like 7/8 or something crazy like that. Very low percentage is actually like populated by humans, like cities. It's all like outskirts and little towns and like places you drive from here to get to there. You know what I mean?
I've heard about the bush. I've heard about the bush, and the bush isn't a
The
place that
outback
you really
bush,
want to
yeah.
go.
It's
Yeah,
like only
you get
the
lost.
aboriginals can live out there because they've like figured out the way to live there. Anybody else who goes there like doesn't survive because they're just not built for it. The sun is so hot.
Yeah.
Like you like even like their skin is different than other people. They even say like that's insane where they've literally either evolved or have like figured out how to not die in a desolate area, you know?
I mean, that is evolution. Also, I
Adaptation,
don't
yeah,
think
yeah.
that adaptation, evolution, it's the same thing in my mind, honestly. Like, I don't think that, I don't think that if someone says evolution, it draws a hard line in the sand against their creator concept, honestly, because if the world is changing, why wouldn't a body change, adapt? I mean, obviously, it's not perfect. Like, I think someone told me, you bring that up too much. But, too little sun, and you got no energy even to get up in the morning. Too
Right,
much
right.
sun, and you got to get those
You got
moles
no
checked
energy
out.
because you're
You
burned.
know,
Yeah, because you have cancer
yeah, you
now.
got exactly. Like the healthy amount of the sun falls somewhere in between.
That sweet
Pale
zone.
pasty. There's a sweet zone of and it's interesting. Like, but if the world is changing and the world goes through shifts, which obviously we can prove that it does, right? There's nothing against. Look, we know that people are taller. Even Christians want to say people were shorter back then for some reason, but they don't want to talk about why. That's an adaptation or an evolution, whatever. I've heard Christians always say people were shorter back then. What do you call that anyway? So however you want to put it, but the Denisovan population, which was on the furthest east coast, like Siberia, all the way up and down, like that we find their genetics mixed with, I believe, the Polynesians that went east, crossed toward America, founding like Hawaii. I believe maybe the native Hawaiian population may have Denisovan blood. I may be wrong about that, but I think the highest concentration of Denisovan, and I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. I apologize. Denisovian, Denisovian, Denisovan. Anyway, it's Denisoe something if you're looking it up. The highest amount of their genetics, just like I probably have some of the European Anglo-Saxon in me, which means I have up to 4% Neanderthal DNA, because we were all just different kinds of humans that could mix, right? Like they can show it now. Aboriginal people in Australia have, I guess, even higher percentage, maybe up to like 6 or 8% of Denisovian, but they're, you know, and they, but then you look and it's like, that doesn't look like any different than what you're trying to tell me the ancient human beings looked like. So, and even when they talk about Neanderthals, people have this weird, but it's, idea. But really, when you look at people who are just being like, all right, scientifically, if we put it together, this is what they look like. It's like, that looks like a human being. Like the things that they find that are the major
Right. Pretty
differences between
humanoid,
like
right?
yeah, I mean, not pretty humanoid, human. You know what I mean? I mean, human. And again, thinking about like if people like had to live through different kinds of an ice age or whatever, if your population got cut off I mean, from the rest of the world, then your people could very well develop very drastically different. The Neanderthals, they say, they reached full maturity by the age of, I think, 12 to 14, whereas we reached full maturity as adults, like bodily, by about like 18 to like 23, 24 ish or whatever, mental maturity. Not, I'm
Some
not
of us
talking about that.
never. Yeah.
Some of us never with the mental maturity,
Some of
but at
us
least as
never.
far as like, the physical maturity, they did it like in like 60% of the time. But they say that the reason why we as people are quote unquote smarter are because of uh, um, the longer maturity process. So the longer it takes your brain to develop, the more your brain develops. So imagine it basically, if we had a 100-year childhood, then we would probably be extreme super geniuses compared to what we think of ourselves right
Well, yeah,
now.
because you have a
Because
lot more time to learn things. Yeah, it makes sense.
the brain is in that plastic or fluid stage longer, or whatever they want to call it, and so they say that the Neanderthals were, they reached full maturity much, a couple years faster, so they weren't as smart. But when they say that, then they start showing all these other things, like, okay, you've seen burial grounds and religious purposes, you've seen you've seen culture and civilization, and maybe they didn't build iPhones, but they were making it through an ice age. We didn't have iPhones then either. You know what I mean? I mean, like
Right. It makes sense.
it
Yeah.
looks,
It's hard though. I mean, it's hard to compare
just
things when we're doing it like that because, I mean, just naturally, we always go from the future backwards and go, oh, well, this is what we are now. So this is what that should have been if you make it dumb it down and simplify it. You know what I mean? Which not always the case is what they're finding. You know what I mean? Very much so, not always the
but
case.
that
So
I think that's the problem, that because we look to the past, I think the big problem is when people go into the past, they always want to either dumb it down or they want to golden age it, you know? And
right, right.
there's nothing really that shows that humans have been really any different for about 200,000 years, right? Basically, in the same form with the slight variations and everything and whatever. Maybe there were slightly different human, but if we could mix again, you know how I feel about things. If man from this tribe and a female from that tribe, or vice versa, can make they don't make mules. The reason why I have up to so much Neanderthal blood is because Neanderthal and the Homo sapien did not create an abomination, an affront, something like a mule that will not even genetically, DNA will not even allow this creature to breed. No, it's like, you know, it was Sesame Street. One of these things is not like the other, but these two are, and they're actually the same, and they can make a baby that can make another baby. You know what I mean? I mean,
Right. Propagation.
it's not. There's no difference there. There's not a difference there. That's literally it.
I
And,
get
and
you.
so if you want to call them, it's almost like the Denisovan Neanderthal. It's just ancient racism. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how else to put it. That's all I think
Archaeology
about it as.
racism. I love it.
You know? Well, why are they gone? Because
Classism.
they must have been dumb.
They
They
were
must have been
stupid.
dumber than
Yeah.
us. They
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
stoopy heads.
All they had
And
to
there you
do
go.
was
So
wear
like,
clothes.
or maybe it became less advantageous to become an adult so fast for a lot of different reasons, and those traits kind of fell away.
Or
By the
maybe
way, they're
some of
still
these
4%, up to
manticores are rolling
4% in some
around.
people. See,
That's what
and
I'm thinking.
that might be the
Manticore
truest of all truths. It might have been the manticore.
snatched up all of the village because let's make some metal suits. Bammo manticores coming through your village, killing everybody.
It could have been Macaulay Mbembe, I believe. I'm going to reopen the closed tab because
Sasquatch can come get you.
yeah. Let's see. And where is it? What was it called? The dinosaur in the Congo. Yep, it is Mokele Mbembe. I was correct. Oh, yes. So I mean, yeah, I think that as far as mythical animals, I want to see more things, even pictographs. How if people actually claim, but no one ever really claims too much about where we killed it, and you can find the
Not the
remains, and we
mythical
hung the
ones, yeah.
body.
It's
I
always the
want
ones
to.
that
I would
they,
like
big giant versions of stuff we have now that they have found and killed and, hunted down, stuff like that.
because of that. I think that next time we do an episode like this, we need to go a little. We need to stick to the cryptos that probably have some more of the woo woo stuff. Some more, at least I want someone who took a video of the bushes and it looks like this. It looks like nothing, and there's one dot, and they say, "There's the proof." You see his hand right there, and there's his face. Look, his eyes. See how widespread they are, and how far from the nose. You
Yeah, but
know that is a sign
in
of the
doing
Bigfoot.
that, you're limiting yourself to time periods from
No, I'm
what?
not even saying.
From the
But
1910s forward? Creatures that have
I
had
mean,
picture evidence or some sort of evidence written
not
down.
even
You
picture
know what I mean?
evidence,
Like,
I
I'm
guess
saying even
things that have a lot
written
more
down
weight.
stuff. You know what I mean? Like
I kind of wanted to.
Tasmanian devil, that kind of thing. Like, no
Well,
one's
that was a
seen
real
one.
creature that the,
They have I know, but they have like video of them, but no one's seen one besides that video. You know what I mean? Like, it's such a weird thing, but they have a bunch of books talking about people seeing them because they were hunted for their, you know what I mean? Like, it is still a myth besides the fact that we've seen one on a video, so to speak.
like
It's one of those things.
even my namesake, from what I was able to learn, the Caspian tiger. Right? The Caspian tiger, they
Yeah,
say,
yeah.
was hunted to extinction by 1972. That's a pretty round number for an animal that lives, in the jungle. I mean, who's to say that there was not one or two that made it all the way to 1979 before someone found the prettiest stripes on the planet? I mean, they say by
Right,
72.
right.
So,
Of
all
course.
right, I'm not trying to draw that kind of hard line in the sand. At this point in time, 50 years later, I don't believe we're gonna find a Caspian tiger. I think they're gone, unfortunately. But the Tasmanian
I think
devil, the
even
Caspian tiger, these are things that there's not really dispute. There's not really
no, no, no.
like
I'm not saying
it.
disputing. It's just
It,
like you were
it
saying, like
wouldn't
you'd
change
like to
science to find one. It would just be like, wow, cool. I wonder where they've been holding
one
up.
lasted. Wow. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
One
It's like
lasted.
the
Wow.
uh, puffin at one time. They were like, the puffin is extinct. It's gone. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden there was puffins everywhere, and they're like, "Oh shoot, we got to protect these puffins because we thought they were dead." You know what I mean? But we found out like their reproductive cycle was weird for some weird reason.
Is the puffin a descendant of a dodo, perhaps, or something? They look similar. If I'm
I
thinking of
think,
the
yeah,
right
I think
animal.
so. I think
The
so.
dodo
Yeah.
looks like it's in the penguin family, and possibly, maybe not. Yeah, I could be wrong, but yeah, I think I just mean, I don't know. The dinosaur, it really fell flat, and I just kept digging and digging and digging, and nothing really.
Got to pick a
Dinosaurs
better
everywhere.
monster, man.
I know this was all my fault. I felt really bad about it. I wanted to kibosh it from the get go, but
Or
I
just
was
pick
already
multiple
just,
ones and do that.
and that's what I had to do because I thought I was going to find enough with the one in Congo. I ended up having to go to
Well,
the
it's
pterosaurs in the Ozarks. It was something else, man. It just, and none of them were cool to me. Like, I really liked the guy, David Cho, who went out there. He's awesome. He seemed like, rad, great head on his shoulders, like true, like trying to get to the bottom of this. Why the hell are people claiming that this thing is out there? He seemed like a very rad, legit dude. But man, I felt bad because they gave him a drink, they put a show on. But again, it just is like, yeah, this guy came all this way.
I had the same thing when I started looking up. I at first was thinking, oh, I want to look up the Phoenix. And then I looked up like maybe 20 minutes of stuff and was like, oh, that's it. You know what I mean? Like, I still think it's a really cool creature. I mean, I have a really, really love for it. It's cool, but I'm
I
also
know
like,
that.
oh, there wasn't a whole lot to it that I thought that there was going to be. You know what I mean? And then when I
A lot
started,
of
that
these
my
don't
second
have
choice
as
was actually
much.
Manticore. Yeah, yeah. It's because
Yeah,
half of it is it's all made up or could be all made
yeah.
up. You know what I mean? And it keeps changing
But
because all these different cultures keep getting a hold of these stories and changing it to match their their news or their warning or whatever the case might be. They change it to fit their element, to fit what they need, their propaganda, so to speak.
Yeah, I think really for the future, I'll be sticking to the things that at least have claims, more legends, more legends. I want more. I want more concept. I don't want to have to. If I have to do more than one, I want to have something more compelling. Feel like feel
Sure,
like
sure, yeah, I get you.
just you know, for
Yeah, I
me.
get you. We'll have to
But
hold that up for next episode,
we're gonna get
actually.
that one on. The Harry Man.
Right.
I should have done the Harry Man. I could talk about Harry Man
That's
all
a
day. You know,
whole
it's the
episode,
curse.
man.
It's the
Right.
curse.
That's a
Oh,
whole episode, though. That's why I'm like, save it, save it. But hey, let's cut it off
Bigfoot. That's a
here and
big one.
get to maybe
Maybe
we'll do
like
that one
that.
next episode.
Hopefully we'll have fun, and let us know what you think about things at 9 midnight everywhere. And write us if you have a story about a hairy man or a dinosaur. Honestly, if there's a better story about a dinosaur, I really want to know.
Yeah, call in,
9
email.
midnight at gmail.com. NIH, like it's coming. Then midnight, MIDNITE, at gmail.com. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody, again for watching.